Let's just continue this conversation. We're going to bring in former CIA field officer and co-founder of Prescient Intel, Raymond White, as well as strategic director of Concerned Veterans for America, John Burns. Gentlemen, so great to have you both on this morning. Raymond, let me start with you, actually. So just a day into Project Freedom, CENTCOM is now reporting the U.S. Navy has managed to open one lane to shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, saying this, quote, U.S. Navy guided missile destroyers are currently operating in the Arabian Gulf after transiting the Strait of Hormuz in support of Project Freedom. 2 U.S. flagged merchant vessels have successfully transited through the Strait of Hormuz. All right, Raymond, so are we on our way to opening up the strait? And it's obviously super vital shipping route. Again, this has been such a back and forth at this point. Do you think this is it?
Alex, good morning. Yeah, that's a great question. Frankly, I think this is going to be the week where the rubber meets the road. And here's why. We have 2,000 stranded vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. And yesterday was a huge day, in fact. The reason being that Iran decided to launch missiles at our 2 guided destroyers that are chaperoning vessels out of the strait. And they also launched 7 fast attack boats against our ships as well. These were destroyed by Apache helicopters. And in addition, as you know, and you mentioned already, they also launched missiles and drones against the UAE's major oil production facility. So the War Powers Act, or the War Powers Resolution, President Trump declared an end to hostilities on May 1st. Here we are again, however, and under the War Powers Resolution, the president does have the legal ability to trigger a new War Powers Resolution. And in fact, if Iran doesn't smarten up, they may walk themselves back into a future 60-day conflict again with the United States, because we'd have the legal authority to go after them. The other thing to point out quickly is that the president of Iran yesterday actually pointed the finger at the IRGC and said that they were completely irresponsible in their actions of the UAE. So in many respects, I suspect we may see some action against the IRGC this week, including Ahmed Vahidi, and perhaps he might be kissing a cruise missile. We'll see.
All right. Yeah, and John, just to build off Raymond's point there, he talks about Iran needing to kind of smarten up here. Well, the Iranian regime does not see Project Freedom as a pathway to peace for some reason. Here's what they had to say, quote, warning, any American interference in the new maritime regime of the Strait of Hormuz will be considered a violation of the ceasefire. The Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf would not be managed by Trump's delusional posts. No one would believe blame game scenarios. Wow. Okay, your thoughts on this?
Well, I think we have a ceasefire at this point in name only. I think Ray's right. We're heading away from a ceasefire. America has a huge technological advantage, military advantage in terms of our forces, our force structure, our capabilities. Iran, though, has a geographical advantage, right? They live on the Strait of Hormuz. They have military forces, including asymmetric forces, arrayed there. And it's clear that they continue to be able to operate and threaten, not just U.S. forces, but to threaten global economic through all the shipping that passes there. It comes down to a simple calculus, right? We set out to destroy their nukes, to destroy their government. Right now, we have the strait closed. So we either have to negotiate our way out of that or we have to escalate. And I'm afraid that escalation, in order to force the strait open, could lead to boots on the ground.
Yeah, and Raymond, let's just, again, we need to talk about this ceasefire in name only, as John was just saying. So perhaps making good on all of their threats, missiles coming from the direction of Iran were aimed at the UAE. Here's what their defense minister had to say, quote, 4 loitering munitions coming from Iran towards the country were detected, where 3 missiles were successfully intercepted over the country's territorial waters, and the last one fell into the sea, end quote there. What does this signify to you, Raymond?
I believe that Iran is trying to disrupt whatever is going on right now. They see that the negotiations are at a bit of a stopping point or a pause or a gridlock, whatever you want to call it. And typically what happens when you reach those kinds of pauses is action needs to be, or action is inserted into the mix. And the reason why is to stimulate some kind of ongoing conversation or dialogue. So I suspect, although Iran wants to continue the ceasefire, they want to talk, they want to keep things moving. They actually said they had 2 more months, they thought, for negotiations. It's in the White House's best interest at this point to just stay the course, keep on the pressure, Iran, and use military action when needed and when appropriate. However, Iran needs to be careful because they are really, really playing with fire this week.
Yeah, and John, I want to follow up on something that Raymond just said. You know, Iran's asking for 2 more months of negotiations. It just seems like this stalling game over and over. What is the timeline that you foresee when it comes to this?
Well, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I think that the midterms were creating a huge pressure for President Trump to do something, but I think that's become baked in the cake. I think he understands that, the odds are against him no matter what happens. So I think for him, he's just going to want to win. And again, I'm afraid that could be boots on the ground. I think the 60-day mark, I think it's up to Congress whether that was really a ceasefire or not, and whether the clock resets. I think it's time for Congress to weigh in. I think that will set the stage for a much healthier discussion here at home about where to go next, and that will help determine the timeline.
All righty. Raymond White, John Burns. Gentlemen, great discussion this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thank you,
All right,
Alex.
coming up, a redistricting